The following video features excerpts taken from 5 recorded live lessons on painting with gouache. To learn more about how you can access this entire live lesson series, as well as the other live lesson series and video courses and much, much more, visit thevirtualinstructor.com/members. Approach. But I kind of just like drawing it freehand and then making evaluations and decide if I'm close to what I want or not. There's no way you're ever going to get it exactly the same. So you can kind of let that stuff go right from the start. And I'm just going to start at the top of the can here, and I see that there's a slight bit of an angle. And I'm just going to, all right, we've got a strong area of highlight that comes up, and that's going to be really fun to paint right here. And then we've got this crease that comes down. And then this is all dark value right here. There's kind of a all right. Now, the upper portion of this C needs to be altered just a bit. I'm going to actually put it at a little bit more of a stronger angle, and that might mean bringing this upper line up a little bit further. There we go. Here. And then, of course, I've got my gouache paints, and I'm going to be using the Winsor & Newton Designer's Gouache. It's all gouache, but this line is called Designer's Gouache. This line of paint is fairly expensive. If you don't think that you're going to be using very much gouache, then I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying this set. This set I think retails at $60, and as you can see, there's only 6 tubes of paint. There's a lot of paint here. You're going to be using this for quite a while because you don't really use a lot of gouache paint when you use it. It doesn't require big old gobs of paint like we might see with oils or acrylics. But this is definitely high quality gouache. It really is nice and opaque, and it really covers easily. Full layers as well. And I've got my guidelines that I set up last week to kind of give me an idea of where the value changes. Of course, I'm going to, for the most part, I'm going to be going overneath. I'm going to be going over the top of a lot of those guidelines, but I'll still be able to go back and have a good idea of where I am in the painting process for the most part. Okay, I got a little bit of black here in the mixture, and you can see how strong that black is. We got a darker value of the red coming across here. Let me go ahead and let that line be pretty strong. You know, I think I remember mentioning something about the fact that a lot of times, sometimes people want kind of a magic solution for things. They think that there's some secret that they're missing out on, and only if they knew this secret, then that would solve all the problems that they have with their drawing or painting. Again, there are some basic fundamental things that you need to know that I consider clearly as the secrets to drawing, but there's not necessarily a magic way where you just snap your fingers and all of a sudden you create a painting in a very short period of time, and it doesn't require concentration. And it doesn't require work. I mean, and that means including these strange shapes that happen over here where the can is crushed. And it's kind of weird to force yourself to make these darker shapes and things. It just doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel. So some of the areas where I'm making the value a little bit darker are going to be a little bit different in the reference than what's happening on the painting. I'm still looking at the overall shapes of the shadows and trying to keep those consistent. And I'm just kind of working around as I see areas that I want to address. You know, some people are going to want to work it with a little bit of more of a methodical approach, and sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Sometimes in the mood just to hop around in a drawing or painting. So sorry about that. All right, so we've created a little bit of a lighter value. Now we're going to just start going in just like we did with the shadows, the darker values, and then we're going to start putting the highlights. Now the question is, should I put these highlights these strong highlights. I'm going to try to put them in about the same location as they are existing on the can, even though that they're overlapping the letter where I've put them there. You kind of trust what you're seeing here. Let's put a little indication of some lighter values right here. And since this can is aluminum, clearly, we've got light hitting at all different kinds of strange angles because it's all crinkled up, and that's producing some highlights in some unexpected areas as well. So it's not going to be like you would normally expect from when you have a strong defined light source from one direction. And there's lots of opportunities to do so. Again, it's like every time I look at the can, I see more highlights and more actually shadows that we've missed, but more areas of highlight. Not exactly white. Now, in our painting, we're gonna be able to put some areas that are white and get away with it, but we also need to pay attention that the value of the color that's happening right up here is lighter than the value of the color that's happening right here. In fact, this has almost got a little bit of a yellow tint to it, and then right here it changes and it gets darker. And it gets a little bit lighter right there, and then it gets super dark over here. So we're not going to be really dealing with white per se. So we're going to be mixing a lot of different values of, well, basically of gray. And as we're painting this, we want to try to keep our lines as clean as possible. I'm kind of going outside of the lines a little bit when I'm painting, so I'm going to slow down a little bit. But we can always clean up those lines and make them a little bit smoother. I'll come back in a minute and make the value a little bit darker in these areas. Just kind of getting the color on the surface to begin with. And again, here's another example where it might not look like there's much of anything going on, but there is. You can kind of see I need to go back over that area again to get rid of that edge. And of course, you can work super slowly if you want and just bring this to a level of really, really high detail if you want. With that a little bit. All right, there's a little bit of a darker piece right there. And I'm just kind of comparing that to that darker edge that happens. And let's go ahead and just bring a little bit over here. And this is where I'm getting a little bit creative anyway. Okay, so this whole area is pretty much darker. Most of this A is darker. It's going to get lighter right here, and then we'll put a little bit of variation in the value on the inside as well. So we're going to go ahead and use that darker gray. And when I say darker gray, I'm sure you know it. This is not a darker gray. It is a very light gray, but it's darker than the white, clearly. And when I say white, I mean the mixture of white and yellow. Kind of blend that transition there. Again, this was just let me zoom back in there so you can see what's going on here. And you just want to make sure that you don't have too much water on your brush. But see, by just going over the top of it, we can kind of basically just manipulate it on the surface and tone it down. And there's no right way or wrong way. There are, of course, ways that are more efficient than others. I'm not necessarily saying that this is the most efficient way to work, but it is one way to do it, that's for sure. Maybe just a little bit more water on the brush. Again, we want the application to be strong enough so that it's a solid application, but we also want it to be fluid enough that it kind of flows. We don't have to work too hard to get a lot of material on the surface. So now with a little bit of a darker value here, we're going to add a little bit of the illusion of the form of the top thingy. The tab, I guess. And this is just really, again, just a base color, and then we'll adjust the values once it's in place. And of course, if you feel more comfortable kind of painting the values as shapes as you see them, there's nothing wrong with that. And here again, we want just enough water so that it's able to be very fluid and it's easy to make the paint flow on the surface, but it's not so thick that we can't pull the color. It might be a little. So just very subtle, a little bit of information. And then the 2. And then we'll let that F kind of disappear behind there. All right, so there you go. I'm going to call this one finished at this point.